now joined by Nicksick, head coach at Xtreme Couture, which makes him the coach for current heavyweight champ Francis Ngannou, and also a finalist for World MMA Coach of the Year. Eric, we'll get the awkward question out of the way first, and all the debate ongoing with should this interim title shot have even happened now with this timetable. What's Francis's attitude been like as this fight week has approached and this interim title shot has approached?
Honestly, Phil, it's probably been like one of the things I'm most proud about is just been his approach and his perspective. The one thing that I was kind of nervous about was being in the gym. What was his training regimen going to be like? He, maybe going to go on vacation and do this and do that. He hasn't stopped training. We were prepared to fight September 25th versus Derrick Lewis, and we started camp essentially. So that Monday we started working out and started training, and he hasn't looked back. He hasn't taken a day off. He's been at every practice and doing everything he's supposed to do. So as a coach and as a friend, I'm super happy with his perspective and his approach towards this, and he's just getting his work in.
All right, we want to get your opinion on this fight because obviously there is vested interest in how this pans out. Derrick Lewis, 4-fight win streak. Francis has fought him before, but in truth, it's farther ago in terms of his development than the calendar would suggest. But for Derrick, what have you seen from him on this current 4-fight win streak that he's on that's impressed you from a technical standpoint?
Honestly, just, Derrick's always going to be in the fight, whether it's in the first minute or the last minute. And I think that's where guys almost kind of get lackadaisical. They might be picking him apart. They might be hurting him. But he's just always game, and he's always going to be there. And for Derrick, it's a one-hit element for him. Tactically, I've seen him for a long, long time. I've cornered against him when we had Roy Nelson, but I've got to see his development since then. But the biggest thing for me has been his footwork and his movement. He doesn't really try to put his back to the cage as much as he used to. It looks like he tries to fight for more of the geography and more of the cage control. And I think that's going to be imperative in this fight in particular, is you don't want to allow Gane to back you up to the cage and use his length and use his teeps and keep you pinned there, where I think Derrick's really going to have to fight for that center in this fight.
We'll chat Gane in a second, and you look at the bettors' odds. Lewis is almost a 3-1 underdog. As you sit here today, what do you think is his best avenue for what we would consider an upset?
I think his durability. I think his durability is his best avenue, and it's really hard to hit him clean. Things are ricocheting off his arms. He covers very well, and he's just kind of has that rope-a-dope mentality where, if Gane thinks he's picking this guy apart, and then all of a sudden Derrick loads and stays in his shell and comes up loading with a big hook or a big overhand, your night's over pretty quick. And we've seen that out of Derrick, and we've seen that out of him in a lot of fights. So it's something that he's comfortable with, and it's something that he knows he can always find. So when you look at the betting odds, to me, I would favor more of the underdog because I think there's a lot of value there.
Well, let's talk about the favorite, Ciryl Gane. It's a short list of UFC heavyweights who have started 6-0 in the octagon. Randy Couture, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, your boy Francis Ngannou, and now his buddy from Le 12e Arrondissement de Paris, Ciryl Gane. What have you seen from Gane and his development over the last, 2 years in which he's racked up the 6-0 record that's impressed you?
Honestly, he's kind of the evolution of the sport. I think that there's that curve where you're seeing fighters that are able to strike from both stances. They're mixing in their level changes and fit-ins. They're doing everything that they're supposed to do. But, he does a great job of his angles, his cage control, his traps. There's a lot of great things you can do when you can strike out of both stances. But when you get a guy backed up to the perimeter, we call it those gates of fire, those corridors, those 2 cage posts. And when you get them to those cage posts, you're able to dictate which way they move, but you have valuable weapons and options no matter which way they go. He has setups for. So to me, I think his fight IQ, his situational awareness is beyond its time. So, this guy deservingly so. He's in this title spot, and I think this matchup is so great because you have a veteran like Derrick Lewis, and you have this new breed of fighter in Ciryl Gane.
Well, 5.5 weeks ago, Gane went 25 minutes against Alexander Volkov, absorbed 115 significant strikes. Obviously, some of those more significant than others. But how much of a factor do you think that 5+ week layoff will be?
It really just depends on how hard he came out of that fight and any of the damage that he took. But for me, when I looked at the Gane fight and the Rosenstruck fight, those are like going to college. He got a good 25 minutes in the cage with these men. Didn't really have to see a whole lot of adversity, but the experience and cage factor alone for a young guy like that, I think, is really imperative at this stage in his career. So now he knows he can dig deep, he can stay, at length, he can pick guys apart, and I think that's really going to show in this fight come Saturday.
Well, the most important piece of evidence for Francis's next heavyweight title defense against whomever it may be will likely be this UFC 265 main event. And I know some variables therein, but as you sit here today, who do you think presents, I guess, the more complex challenge for Francis in terms of a winner?
I think both are very interesting, right? Because Francis has a loss to Derrick Lewis, and although that fight was just such a weird fight and so long ago, it's hard to really hang that. But you got to think in the mental standpoint, how does that affect Francis? And then on the flip side of that, we're talking about a gym and a training partner that he's very familiar with as well. So the backstories, I think, are very intriguing when it comes to this fight for us. But he's in a good space mentally that I don't really think it's going to matter. For us, this is going to be more tape, more game film, if you will, and we get to try to break these guys down to best suit our skill set. And we're just looking forward to see who the winner is going to be out of this.
Eric, last question for me, and you've been very generous on a rare week off for you to join us. You are so great when you're talking to your fighters in the octagon of helping their psychology. This is a big spot for Ciryl Gane. When you have guys in there, do you try and get the step up, whatever it is, title shot, first main event? Do you try and treat it like any other fight, or do you think it's okay for them to intellectually acknowledge, no, this is the biggest spot of my career, and I should try to elevate to that level?
Honestly, Phil, I think it kind of depends on the fighter and what their psyche is and what motivates them. Is mostly, yes, everybody in this sport is there because they want to be a champion. So maybe that is something that you draw off of in this fight. Like, hey, this is why we're here and this is what we're doing it for. And then some guys, you don't want to add so much added pressure to them. So maybe you say, hey, this is only just a fight. Really it just depends on the fighter and knowing them for so long and so well and what they draw from and what you need to pull out of them in that minute.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and you do such a great job of making the complex simple for guys like me. Enjoy the fights this weekend.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.